In today's digital age, criminals are using the cloak of social media to target and prey on unsuspecting victims. Chat services and sites like Facebook, Instagram, and Skype are now the hotbeds of crime.
Online scams do exist, and we have to realize that they are very real in Singapore.
Fraudsters have identified Singapore as a spot where there's a potential pool of victims that could be approached to try and scam.
And when it comes to online fraud, nothing is more insidious than romance scams.
I was prepared to forego maybe a couple of $1,000.
He can convince anyone into believing whatever he said was actually the whole truth.
With its strategic location and financial hub, Singapore is the most affluent country in Southeast Asia. Earning more than their Southeast Asian counterparts, Singaporean professional women, highly educated and independent, have become prime targets for local and international romance scammers. More than 80% of the population below 50 use the internet. 4 out of 5 users are active in social media, and more are using these online platforms to find romance and partners for life.
The trend is definitely going up, and the Singaporeans are definitely opening up much more for online dating. 80% actually prefer to meet this way.
Internationally, love scams are responsible for the loss of millions of dollars. These scams have targeted women in the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia. Now they're on the rise in Asia. In Singapore alone, cyber love scams proved to be the country's fastest growing crime. In 2013, according to the Singapore Police Force, nearly $4.5 million were lost through love scams, a rise of over 60% from the year before. Before the creation of social media, there was simply email.
You've got mail.
In the 1990s, online friendships grew exponentially, along with scam emails offering fortunes and love. Many of these creatively written scam emails came from Nigeria, a volume that grew so prolific that the country developed an infamous reputation. They became known worldwide as 419 scams, the number for fraud in Nigeria's penal code. Romance scams in Singapore first surfaced in 2008, and in most cases, scammers trolled online dating and social networking sites for their victims.
See, in terms of victim profile, usually these are women. We do see men, but dominantly we see women. These tend to be older women. They are women who have an idealized sense of love beliefs. They believe deeply in the notion of love and romantic beliefs.
These women are financially established. They have been focusing on their career for the past 10 to 20 years. So now, at this age, they are willing to settle down and they're open to meeting people online.
The first stage is basically what we would call a searching stage. Perpetrator will then search for potential victims, and usually this happens in dating websites.
Amy holds a senior position in a local company. A successful career woman, she was having problems in her marriage. It was an emotional time for her, and all she wanted was to have someone to talk to.
It started when this guy contacted me in Skype.
Later into the conversation, Amy finds out that Terry is an American oil rig engineer who is currently based in Ghana.
He said that he has never been to Singapore and he would like to visit, and he asked me to tell him more about Singapore. a kind of a tease and a cheeky kind of break the ice kind of conversation. He was like, "Oh, I like you already." Then I was a bit worried and said that you don't even know me yet.
As the weeks progressed, the cyber friendship grew stronger. Saying all the right words to impress Amy, Terry was pushing all the right buttons. As Amy's relationship with her husband grew more distant, Terry became her shoulder to lean on.
After the friendship progresses, he asked me about my relationship. Whether I was in any relationship, and I said, yes, I have a partner, but it's not going well.
Amy continued communicating with Terry, thinking that he was her knight in shining armor.
At that point of time, I know it was like a hazy kind of feeling already. I was probably too in love with him and all this kind of thing. It didn't trigger me. I didn't really read into it at that point of time, yeah.
They take months and months of relationship building, and they build the trust in such a way. They take a long time to build the trust, and when the trust is there between the victim and the scammers, that's when they break the trust.
6 months into their online relationship, Terry began asking Amy for a favor. He says his oil rig venture is struggling.
He starts to tell me that, he has encountered a problem with his project. His machine is not working. He needs to get some finance to get his machine going.
Terry assures Amy that once his project is complete, he will meet her immediately.
He told me that I really want to quickly finish this project and get out of this place, and I really, really want to see you very soon. He asked me for my contact, and then he called me to ask me about how I can help him.
Amy hears Terry's voice for the first time, but something is amiss.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
He doesn't sound American. He sounded like an African, because he told me that he was raised as a baby in Africa.
Though Amy's suspicions about Terry started to develop, he remained insistent that she had to send him the money.
Yeah, honey, please, can you send me the money I asked you? Yeah, for the business I told you about. Yeah.
I still feel a bit scared, but I was prepared to forgo maybe a couple of $1,000 just to take this gamble and see that whether this guy is really real.
Amy does her own research just to be certain about Terry's credibility.
Later on, he gave me the address that I'm supposed to send the money to. In Accra, Ghana, find out that, okay, there's really this road, there's really this place. It sounds very believable.
Terry instructs Amy to send the money only via Western Union and not by any other means. Set up in over 200 countries worldwide, Western Union has become the preferred method for romance scammers to secure funds from their victims. The financial transaction is faster than using a regular bank transfer, enabling anyone, including scammers, to get their cash in no time.
Somebody could put money into our system, and probably within 10 minutes, depending on which product they chose, it could be delivered. A banking system usually requires 1, 2, 3, 4 days.
Amy arrives at Western Union and eagerly begins her transaction.
I remember there is one afternoon, we have a customer come and send money to Africa.
Ma'am, do you know the receiver?
We always ask customers such questions.
It's my friend's husband. And do you know the destination that you are sending it to? Why are you asking me so many questions?
She doesn't want to listen, and she's very angry. She will scold us.
This is my money. I have the right to send this. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I feel that there's some problem with the receiver and the destination that you are sending it to. And I'm really sorry that I'm unable to assist you in this transaction.
We advise her do not send because, based on our experience, this may be a scam.
We do not know at the other end whether it's a white or an African male or a Chinese male or a Mexican male. We just know that it's supposed to be paid to an individual with a name provided by the sender. If these people don't want to be identified, they could be using assumed names, and therefore they obtain some type of fraudulent identification that helps them pick up the transaction.
I was worried. I didn't know what to do, so I called up this guy and said that I couldn't send it over because they stopped me.
Desperate, Terry hatches a new scheme to convince her to send the money.
He told me that to send it to his aunt in the USA, and that really reinforced the point that he wants to get, it's a scam, he wants to get this sum of money out of me by hook or by crook.
Some of these victims might be chronic. They might be sending multiple transactions thinking that this is the love of their life, and we try to identify them and get in front of their transactions and stop them before they're paid out, because when a transaction's been paid out, cash is out the door.
Fortunately, Amy came to her senses and never gave Terry any money, but her encounter with him continues to haunt her.
I was really quite scared. He has my home address, he has my telephone number. Is he coming to find me, and is he going to find my house and hurt my family? I went to the police to report this incident. They just recorded it, but I don't think they could do anything about it.
Leaving a trail of heartbreak and confusion, online predators shake off their losses and move on. Each day brings a new search and a new prey. For every victim like Amy, there will be many others to target and manipulate. Using the stealth of the internet, romance scammers are hard to track down, and bringing them to justice is an even more difficult process, especially when they're based offshore.
Most of the professional criminals, they change name, they change different identity to communicate with all his victims.
Ali Fazeli is the founder of Infinity Forensics. He's a private investigator tracking down cyber criminals.
His computer forensics or IT investigation is investigating any criminal activities, online scams.
His latest case, a romance scammer masquerading as a pilot.
A client of mine approached me. She said she met a person a few months back through internet chat. This guy was claiming to be a pilot.
The pilot, based in Hong Kong, called himself John and met Alicia on a dating website.
They had this ongoing relationship for last few months, and he decided basically to come to Singapore.
Immaculate and confident, John portrayed himself as a high flyer and global jet setter.
We find out he has a LinkedIn account, and under this LinkedIn account he was saying he's a professional pilot, and as a result he was friend with few other real professional pilots.
If the scene sounds like something out of the movies, it isn't far off. In the Hollywood film Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio plays a real-life conman who impersonates a pilot. Looks like the smooth-talking flight captain persona continues to work its spell.
As a pilot, if they are earning that kind of income, being able to travel around the world to enjoy that high life, then naturally the women are not so cautious when this man asked for financial assistance.
He treat her very well, and he wine her, he dine her.
She's one of the most gorgeous girls I met.
A consummate sweet talker, John charmed his way into Alicia's heart, grooming her to become his money honey.
And in this grooming stage, the perpetrator will present himself in a very endearing fashion. Will be one of the most likable persons that she has ever met, saying all the things that she wants to hear so that he gets her interest.
After LinkedIn, we managed to find his Facebook account. His Facebook account is the same scenario. He was contacting with many females, and he also comes with the same story, which I'm coming over and visiting you and try to have a relationship with them, distance relationship.
Will you marry me?
She was totally in love and she was thinking everything is going very well.
With this ring, from today onwards, I'm going to be the man by your side.
They paint a kind of very rosy picture to these ladies, and they gave them a sense of hope. They built that emotional connection, the trust and the rapport with these ladies over time. They enjoy being accepted, being loved. They enjoy the companionship of these scammers.
He said he would like to purchase a property in Singapore. He said he has a $45 million property in Australia, which he is in the middle of selling the property. And he would like to transfer some of the money to a Singapore account. But because he's not a resident here, he can't open a bank account, and ask her to open a bank account for him under her name.
When I say that I want to give you the best, all right, now this is the best. This is all for you. I really hope that you like it.
Once he was sure Alicia was hooked, John informed her that he had to fly to Australia. She opened a new account as instructed, and John transferred $1 million to her.
He said there are some misunderstandings and asked her to transfer the money to another account. She transferred the money to the different account, and after that, he totally disappeared.
Unknowingly, Alicia had made herself a money mule. She had transferred $1 million into an offshore account and helped John's transaction to go completely undetected. In the money mule scam, the victim opens a bank account under her name. The scammer, usually from a money laundering syndicate, then gets her to use this account to cover up an illegal money transfer. By adding more money mule transactions and victims into the mix, the money laundering mastermind is well hidden from the eyes of the law. While these women don't lose their own money, the act of being a money mule can see them charged for receiving stolen funds and aiding and abetting in criminal activities. Under Singapore law, money mules can face a huge fine or jail. Noraya Binti Bakar, a female businesswoman, was jailed for 6 years for laundering nearly $4 million for a Nigerian syndicate and taking a fee for doing it.
Money mules who are females usually suddenly find that they are left having to face the courts or the full weight of the law. It's especially difficult because they suddenly find that the person who they trusted overseas is not really their friend, and it suddenly leaves no forwarding address or no ability to contact them.
In 2012, 93 money mule cases were reported to the police. These numbers increased to 133 cases in 2013, with money laundering transactions amounting to over $12 million. Alicia was lucky to get away unscathed, as she was unaware that she was being used and did not receive any fees for the transfer. Experienced love scammers are long gone before most women realize what has happened. Working internationally, they often stay one step ahead of their victims and the law. But we find out how some of them get caught. After a long day at work, it's time to unwind and start meeting people. But instead of going out, many are happy to do so from the comfort of their own computers. Although anyone can be a potential online scam target, the most likely prey is the single career woman.
So far, what we have seen is the people who are being taken advantage of are those who at least have some experience in the financial world. They know how to open accounts and close accounts or transfer money online. and a little bit more experience in the ways of the world, but unfortunately in terms of the ability to protect themselves from this new scourge or new menace of supposed online love, they seem to be not that effective at protecting themselves.
We set up a fake profile bearing the name Susan on Tagged, a dating website. In less than an hour, the fake profile attracted 15 messages and almost 30 friend requests. Many men were eager to meet Susan in person, perhaps too eager.
If you look at the perpetrator profile, usually these men will adopt a fake persona. They might even steal identities that they find online.
Based in the United States, Donna Anderson set up lovefraud.com to educate the public about love scams.
This is one of the drawbacks of so many people posting this on Facebook and on other social networking sites, is that all these pictures are out there and scammers just take them. There's this one soldier, a very nice looking older man, probably in his 40s with gray hair and bright blue eyes, and his last name is James because you could see it on his uniform. Well, this photograph has been stolen by so many scammers. It's the most widely distributed photograph probably in the world. And I've had at least 3 or 4 women contact me telling me that they were involved with this guy named James, and it's all the same guy. So scammers are stealing this photograph and using it over and over and over again.
In Singapore and across Asia, other men in uniform continue to entice single women online. The following reenactment is based on a victim's account from the case files of the Singapore police.
I met this guy, his name is Simon, on a dating website. He claimed he's a chief pilot from SIA.
Jane was a successful lawyer looking for Mr. Right in April 2011. She joined a dating website named OkCupid.com. The site promises individuals a chance at finding true love.
Initially, we chat online, and then we were speaking on the phone, texting each other almost like every day. You know, he would send me pictures of himself, and he would say something like, "Dear love." And I know it's a bit too early, but, you know, I thought we had a connection.
After 4 months of constant communication with Simon, Jane was fully convinced that he was the one. It was an apprehensive moment for Jane as she waited for her first meeting with Simon.
When we first met, he was wearing a pilot uniform.
And they will make themselves appear to be good men, you know, men who are older, for example, men who believe in religion, who believe in God, who might make good husbands, who might make good fathers. And so these women actually fall in love with this idea of a really good person.
And then we met, and then we hugged each other, and he bring me to his car. It was an old Toyota saloon car.
I know it's a horrible car, but I don't drive my expensive car to work.
It's okay. It's all right.
Good.
Simon, like other romance scammers, was very good at what he does, and Jane believed everything he told her.
Simon was so confident and so smooth. He started talking about his whole life.
Simon did his best to impress her with his family's wealth and assets.
His family owned this rubber plantation as well as the whole of Cascade Road and Cortina Court. He claimed to own several apartments and that he was renting it out. I was pretty impressed.
They will try to mirror the values of the victim. So the victim likes certain things, certain values in life. They will also pretend to share the same values.
Over lunch, Simon continues his charade and lures her deeper into his trap.
Then we went to some roti prata stall.
Very tasty.
And then something really weird and unexpected happened.
I love curry very much.
There's this guy suddenly turned up and got into an argument with Simon.
Jane, it's okay. Okay, Jane. It's okay. Can we go somewhere?
Sure, let's go.
The stranger accuses Simon of faking his identity.
I know you're a fake pirate.
So? I'm going to report to the police. I will do it.
Simon became very stressed and agitated.
But what's happening?
I'll tell you, it's a long story.
Simon takes Jane to a park, where he begins to weave an even more elaborate story in the hope of maintaining control.
When we get there, I think that was when he opened up to me more. And
You know, in the past, I've been conned too many times because I trust people too easily.
I was too concerned for him to notice anything wrong.
Jane accepts Simon's explanation.
You know, Jane, I really like you.
Jane follows Simon back to his apartment.
He said he had lost his wallet with all of his credit cards and money and his key card to his condo. I felt really bad for him.
So the foot in the door technique is when you start with a small request and then you ask for something bigger. So you might ask the victim for $200, you know, I'm in a bit of a trouble, can you give me $200?
He told me he needed to fly to London immediately, but all his credit cards were lost. He asked me for $3,000.
So that's the foot in the door. You start with something small and then you lead on to something bigger.
I don't have that much money, but I have 400. I think that should be all right.
Once Jane started giving money, Simon just kept asking for more.
He asked for another $350 to replace his condo key card.
Like all romance scammers, Simon has no regard for anyone but himself.
He just keep asking about money.
It's a terrible process where they groom these victims, they exploit these victims, they take advantage of these victims simply for the sake of money.
After giving Simon money, Jane never heard from him again. After some time, fearing that she might be a victim of a romance scam, she goes online to investigate. Simon's real name is Ko Seong Keng.
Ko Seong Keng is a very elusive person, and on top of it, he does not have a fixed place of abode, which makes it harder for the police to trace his whereabouts. We check the IP addresses, we trace his mobile numbers, we check backgrounds on him.
After several months of investigation, the police finally found Ko Seong Keng.
Are you Ko Seong Keng?
Yes.
You're a police officer. You're under arrest.
He was caught in the beginning of 2013. He was sentenced to a total of 19 months imprisonment. Out of the 6 women that he had scammed, he had managed to siphon a total of $8,500 from them.
Even though Jane only lost $1,000 to Ko Seong Keng, the incident continues to trouble her even today.
There's a lot of cases that is not in the statistics. There's a lot of women who has been cheated, who has been scammed, but because of the fear of ridicule, they choose not to make the report.
Journalist Donna Anderson was one victim who chose not to stay silent. She is now on a mission to help online romance victims. Scammers live amongst us all, both online and offline. It has been 2 months since we set up a fake profile called Susan on a dating website. The response has been overwhelming. With over 219 requests to meet, it is hard to be certain who is and who isn't a scammer. Donna Anderson knows this too well. An accomplished American journalist, she unwittingly married a scammer.
I met a man online who turned out to be a con artist. This guy took $250,000 from me. He cheated with at least 6 different women during our 2.5-year relationship.
On October 10, 1996, Donna married Australian James Montgomery, who would change her life forever. When the couple met, James claimed that he was a celebrated war hero in Vietnam. Soon he began to ask Donna to help him invest in various business deals, ventures that never materialized.
His behavior was just so astounding and so baffling to me, I could not figure out what it was. So his behavior did not make any sense until I learned that he was a sociopath.
Donna was devastated when she found out about her husband's despicable ways.
Anybody who is engaged in a romance scam is a sociopath. I define a sociopath as a social predator. These people live their lives by exploiting others.
Well, what makes a sociopath so dangerous is that they don't actually feel for their victims. They don't actually feel feelings or empathy, and so they see the victims as objects to be utilized for their own ends.
After 2.5 years of living together, Donna finally left James. Undeterred, Donna founded LoveFraud.com, an awareness and support group for romance scam victims. She has since seen more than 4,000 cases.
This happened to me, and I was a college-educated journalist and businesswoman. It could happen to other people, and I decided that my story needed to be told, and so that's why I founded LoveFraud.com.
Sergeant Andrew E. is a senior investigation officer with the Commercial Crimes Squad in the Singapore Police Force. In 2013, internet romance scams here increased by 62%, with almost $4.5 million lost to cyber Casanovas. One of the more notorious cases involved a pathological gambler named Peter Abu Chiang, better known as Greg Wu to his victims.
Greg Wu is a person who portrayed himself as a fake horse manager. Why he projected himself in such a manner is in order to convince his victims into believing that he is of a person of status.
People who are online with the intention of scamming women are at it 24/7, 365 days a year. What they're doing is they just continually are throwing those hooks out there to see who bites.
He makes an assessment on whether the victim is capable of providing him this particular sum of money if he asks for it.
And one of them is Deborah, a marketing executive at an established company. She never thought she would be a victim until she met Greg. Her story is reenacted based on the case files of the Singapore police.
It was just after the New Year holidays. I kept thinking about how most of my friends, they were married or they had a boyfriend. I was craving for companionship. A friend of mine explained to me how I could do it. I thought it was still worth a try.
Deborah never had expectations of really meeting Mr. Right online. Initially, it was just for fun.
And it was about a month or so later when this guy messaged me on the website. He was nice, really sweet and charming. At first, it was just conversations online, but after a few weeks, we started talking more regularly.
Deborah was slowly falling for Greg, but unbeknownst to her, she was being targeted as a possible victim.
We were text messaging and calling each other almost daily.
When you're communicating with someone online and falling in love online, you're actually falling in love with your own fantasy. And that's what happens, and that's why people get scammed.
2 months later, Deborah took a leap of faith and decided to meet Greg in person.
Deborah.
You must be Greg.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Let's go in.
He opened the doors for me. He was like the perfect gentleman. I mean, he just kept doing the right things and calling me dear.
Even the, shading.
Greg went on the charm offensive, regaling Deborah with tales of his trade and describing to her his efforts to find the right woman to settle down.
One of the main things that they do is they draw on flattery. So they make you feel good. flattery always works. It's a classical marketing principle. It's all part of the gimmick and all part of the perpetrator's plan.
I don't remember talking about money, but I definitely had the impression that he was wealthy. He was wearing a suit, had a gold watch. Just something about him gave me the impression.
Robotics or animation stuff like that.
He loved talking about horse racing.
You know,
I remember him asking me if I ever bet at races before. He said, I know which horses are going to win. If you want to bet, I can triple your money.
Triple your money.
I didn't think anything about it. I thought he was just trying to impress me.
Deborah and Greg met up several more times, and their relationship shifted gears. They were now dating, and she was smitten. Greg had now established a level of trust between them, but all his attention on Deborah masked his darker intentions.
Eventually, Greg started to talk more about how he had insider information on which horses were going to win. He mentioned that early on the date, but now he was seeking my involvement.
Greg Wu had actually copied whatever the overseas scammers had done. So he had actually brought techniques that were used by overseas scammers into Singapore and applied on his victims. What he wanted was a certain sum of money that he needs, and bit by bit, he would actually persuade the victim into transferring the money to him.
I know nothing about horses.
It's okay. Alright, you know nothing about horses is okay. I can teach you. Come on, you trust me?
Having gained her trust, Greg had Deborah exactly where he wanted her, and like all good scammers, he had a very convincing story to tell.
I thought it was just a fun thing to do, but he asked me for $10,000. He was serious and he convinced me that I was going to make an easy profit. It didn't even cross my mind that it would be illegal or that he was scamming me.
These scammers, they are very targeted. They know how to build trust, how to win sympathy points.
After persuading Deborah to give him $10,000 to bet on a sure win, he managed to convince her to give him another $1,000 for another race, with an even bigger promised payout. Deborah was now fully caught up in the deceit, and Greg did all he could to keep her hooked.
After that, he asked me for another $5,000 for another race. He said that my total winnings were around $60,000 to $80,000.
Greg knew he was on a roll, as he continuously requested for more money from Deborah. But Deborah was starting to get annoyed.
I gave you already 30K. How much more you want? You are asking me?
After being questioned, Greg broke down and said that he had placed all the bets with an illegal bookie who had run off with all their cash. Deborah had heard enough of his excuses and confronted Greg.
Cheat me.
I was angry about the money, but I had feelings for him.
Greg?
Greg knew exactly what he was doing and was just buying more time.
When you start to feel affection for somebody, even if that is an imaginary person, it can be so strong that it overcomes your normally protective mechanisms to take care of yourself.
I don't mean all these things. I'm sorry.
So you trust me?
I do.
Convinced and wanting to give Greg a second chance, Deborah gave him all the money she had.
Soon after, Greg said he needed $8,000. I didn't have that much money, so I just gave him $2,000.
Greg's carefully laid out scam was perfect, and he prepared to go in for the kill.
We managed to win so much. What about this one, number 3?
People talk about why these women actually get into these relationships. But why not? Everybody wants to find someone that they truly can settle down with, that they can truly fall in love with. Our advice, having seen these victims, is, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is.
This one, right?
And finally, one night, he asked me for $15,000, and I said no. I had not seen a single cent of my winnings.
Come on, let's go.
I felt something was wrong.
By the end of the affair, Deborah had given Greg a total of $41,000.
People who actually are out to manipulate you actually have a whole host of tools which they do or they use to manage to gain your trust, and you must be on your guard.
In June 2011, Greg Wu was finally caught, not just for defrauding Deborah, but for several other women.
For the 6 victims that he had cheated, he had asked them to transfer a total of 55,000 Sing dollars into his bank account. He was subsequently sentenced to 14 months imprisonment.
We need to be aware that online scammers are out there all the time, and under no circumstances should we transfer money, make urgent money transfers. And if in doubt, we should always report the matter to the police.
It isn't just women who are victims of cyber love scams. Making the headlines is another fraud that targets mostly young men. It's known as the blackmail scam. Men are lured onto online web conversations with beautiful young ladies. These begin as harmless webcam chats and gradually escalate into an erotic striptease. The perpetrator will then entice her male victim to begin stripping.
It's time for you to show me yours.
Oh, okay.
While she secretly records the entire act. These victims are then blackmailed into giving the perpetrator money or risk having his compromising footage posted online.
I have your images.
In Singapore alone, at least 50 online blackmail cases were reported in 2013.
Anybody who gets swindled and conned by a sociopath is very embarrassed. I mean, nobody wants to feel like they're a chump. Nobody wants to feel like they've been conned. It's embarrassing. Nobody wants to admit it.
One of the biggest problems is that they go into it blind and they don't share or don't talk to anybody about this. Part of it may be the shame that they have had to resort to finding affection or love on the internet. And unfortunately, that should not be the case, because in the modern world, everybody does that online as well. And if they have worries or fears or doubts, that is your own sixth sense telling you, check it out first. And so the best thing for them to do would be to communicate with a trusted friend, a pastor, an uncle or auntie who they respect.
In a world where more and more of our lives are led online, it seems unlikely that the phenomenon of cyber fraud will ever go away.
The scams in Europe and in the West have been there for a long, long time. Well, it's pretty new in Singapore, and that makes Singaporeans a little bit more vulnerable because they haven't been through it before. So when it comes to users who are trying to scam other people, they will always be there.
Even as people become more cyber savvy, one can never be too safe.
Never send money to somebody you have not personally met, because you just don't know who that person is.
For every woman that has been lucky enough to avoid being scammed, there have been many who continue to lose money or even go to prison for falling in love.
In the romance scams, what happens is you can also lose your faith in yourself and in other people. When your heart is broken, it's just such a much deeper wound than if all you do is lose money.
Victims of scams, then they live in that misery of blaming themselves again and again. They are finding it very hard to trust others. It's very hard for them to find a partner to love again.
No matter how close you are, how much you love that person, once money comes into play, I think that you should just stay away